Get all those glitches out of there. Come on now. Happy Tuesday. It's Bishop on air, but don't forget, it's going to be Illinois in Focus daily. All right, I think we've been doing this now for a week, starting today, and here soon. Not sure yet, have yet to determine what date certain, but at a date certain, you're only going to get Bishop on air as Illinois in Focus daily at America's Talking Network on YouTube. So get over to America's Talking Network. There should be a link in the description of this video where you can click through, subscribe, get that notification, and we will be soon, at a date certain, going to Illinois in Focus daily with America's Talking Network. I'm Greg Bishop, been doing this with you. Appreciate everybody pouring in. Typically, this has been just, kind of my passion of love, but I figured why not just wrap it into what I do with my full-time gig at the Center Square, where I'm the Illinois Associate Editor. Watching what happens at the State House and bringing you those stories with a team of seasoned reporters. Go to thecentersquare.com, where a lot of our reporting comes from. So, coming up with Illinois in Focus Daily, we're going to take a look at what Illinois officials are saying in reaction to the U.S. Supreme Court's decision about presidential immunity. But we'll also delve into 49 laws that Governor J.B. Pritzker enacted yesterday. And then maybe we take a look at what the U.S. Supreme Court's going to do today, if anything, when it comes to a decision of taking Illinois' gun ban cases. But we'll get you updated on the latest status updates of several cases concerning gun laws in the state of Illinois. So all of that's coming up right here with Bishop on Air, about to be Illinois in Focus Daily. Illinois officials reacting to the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity in the case that President Donald Trump brought to try to claim immunity in several different criminal cases that's been brought up against him. Good morning, back at it. It's Illinois in Focus Daily with America's Talking Network and the Center Square. I'm Greg Bishop. Thanks for being here. And let's get to the story about Illinois officials reacting to the Supreme Court of the United States presidential immunity ruling. So you've got former President Donald Trump, who faces a ton of scrutiny in the courts. And here you've got the ruling that was released yesterday, much anticipated ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court, that ultimately comes in response to Trump's claims that he has presidential immunity against the charges brought against him over actions that he took as president. Now, he's the first former president to face criminal charges. The ruling says president's exercise of his core constitutional powers, this immunity must be absolute. As for his remaining official actions, he's entitled to at least presumptive immunity. The story goes on to talk about how, the former president faces trials in the January 6th case. He faces trials in a document retention case. The president did react on his social media platform, saying that today's historic decision by the Supreme Court could end all of crooked Joe Biden's witch hunts against me. He said, "Proud to be an American." Now, President Joe Biden, if you guys didn't see his address last night, not sure if this was carried on major networks. It was only a 5-minute speech, but for the former president, Donald Trump, getting this victory, Trump says it's a big win. You've got President Joe Biden reacting that it's a bad day for America.
The American people must decide if Trump's embrace of violence to preserve his power is acceptable. Perhaps most importantly, the American people must decide if they want to entrust the president once again, the presidency, to Donald Trump, now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it. At the outset of our nation, it was the character of George Washington, our first president, to define the presidency. He believed power was limited, not absolute. And that power always resides with the people.
So, again, President Joe Biden talking about Trump in his speech concerning presidential immunity. It was rather fascinating to watch the president in his official capacity go to the podium and not just talk in grand terms about presidential immunity and the importance of checks and balances, but specifically speaking about his rival in the presidential election that's just a handful of months away. But President Biden also quoted a bit of the dissent from the liberal justices in this case.
I concur with Justice Sotomayor's dissent today. Here's what she said. She said, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote. So should the American people dissent. I dissent. May God bless you all, and may God help preserve our democracy. Thank you. And may God protect our troops.
So, again, you got President Biden making the speech, not taking any questions in the post speech, and he just walks back into his office. So, the president putting out that message that he dissents and the American people should dissent. Interesting to see how that translates amongst his base and how they may use those words one way or the other. Now, former President Trump, he has been accused of inciting the riot at the Capitol January 6, 2021. But President Trump points out that he said in official messaging, protest peacefully. That hasn't stopped others, though, from highlighting that as a reason why former President Trump should not be back in the Oval Office. But even U.S. Senator Dick Durbin putting out a statement yesterday saying that no one should be above the law, not even a sitting president. Quote, and yet today's ultra-conservative Supreme Court majority ruled that not just Donald Trump, but future presidents may be immune from abusing the levers of government to overturn an election or engage in other misconduct. And you've got quotes that are also coming in from other politicos, including U.S. Representative Mary Miller, who praised the decision on social media. She said, victory in the Supreme Court for President Trump. I was proud to join the effort to file an amicus brief in support of President Trump. Governor J.B. Pritzker releasing a message echoing a lot of what the establishment Democrats have said, and that is that no one's above the law. He said that SCOTUS today left open the possibility that somebody is above the law. He goes, quote, when Trump tried to overturn the results of an election he lost in 2020, it was not the official act of president. It was the act of a despotic, narcissistic attempting to overthrow our democracy, to cling to power, and he needs to answer for his actions. But when you look back at the ruling, the question of official actions was that of, talking to his vice president about the process the vice president's involved in officially conducting the count of the electors. And it is, at least before they recently passed a law, up to the vice president to be able to dictate whether they're going to accept those electors. And former President Trump had a variety of reasons as to why he says the election should not have been certified. But regardless, I guess that's another conversation for another day as we get ready for the November 2024 election. So just wanted to get that out there for you. Some of the reaction from Illinois politicos. I'm sure there's a lot more other reaction out there we can find. But as we get closer to the nominating convention, some of the big things that could happen here. July 11th, just a few days from now, former President Trump is going to be sentenced in the New York State hush money trial he was found guilty in. Whether or not he goes on probation or he's sentenced to jail time or prison time, we have yet to see. But Trump has said that he will appeal that case. He can't appeal until after he is sentenced, so we'll see what ultimately happens there and keep a close eye on all of that. All right, it is Illinois in Focus Daily, right here with America's Talking Network and the Center Square. Go to thecentersquare.com, get the latest headlines, and also subscribe to Illinois in Focus Daily, wherever you get your podcasts, and also here on YouTube with America's Talking Network. All right, so wake up every morning with us as we keep you updated on what's going on in and around the area with America's Talking Network and Illinois in Focus Daily. Measures impacting what kind of cartridge you can use to hunt turkey, to what kinds of workplace readiness training your kids are going to get in school, to what kind of report your auto insurance company has to give you if they say your vehicle's totaled. That's just a mere handful of different laws Governor J.B. Pritzker enacted yesterday in a mass bill release that he put out from his office. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Thanks for being with us. If you are, of course, subscribed at America's Talking Network, you're joining us each and every weekday morning. So go to YouTube, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. America's Talking Network with Illinois in Focus Daily with the Center Square. So go to thecentersquare.com. And one thing that we do, of course, is track what happens at the Illinois State House. And a lot of legislation has been passed this year. I think 445 bills altogether, maybe one more, maybe one less, but around that, right? So we're expecting tons of bills to be released that the governor says that he signed. He's done signing ceremonies for a variety of things. Yesterday, we talked about bills he signed on Sunday, just before the Pride Parade in Chicago, dealing with what the governor called LGBTQ plus affirmation bills. He, of course, had a bill signing ceremony with the signing of the state budget that started yesterday. He had bill signing ceremonies for creating a new state agency in the Illinois Department of Early Childhood. Well, you can't necessarily fit 450 bill signing ceremonies all throughout the summer. So we get headlines like this. Pritzker signs 49 bills impacting elections, hunting, mobile park residents, and more. So if you saw the story yesterday, here's a little bit of ultimately what the story breaks down. And it doesn't give you all of the bills that he signs, but you can get at least an overview of what exactly the legislation the governor is enacting here deals with. And if you click through, you can actually get the PDF of the entirety of that list. All right, it's 49 bills long, so you can click through that and find all those bills for yourself. But let's go through just some of them that at least I thought were rather interesting. One deals with workplace readiness. This is a measure that would essentially say if a public school or a private school has a workplace readiness week for their students, then they have to do a certain curriculum spelled out in state law. Here is State Senator Michael Halpin, Democrat. He spelled out what he believes is ultimately, this measure that passed through the State House and the governor signed yesterday.
Which discusses state and federal local labor laws, some labor history, and apprenticeship programs and other opportunities in the labor workforce.
So Halpin talking about the curriculum that if a private or public school wants to do a workplace readiness week, they have to talk about those things, including labor history and labor law. But some see that as somewhat limiting the speech of teachers in this regard. Here is State Senator Dan McConkey, a Republican.
If they do cover it, it actually limits the breadth of the speech that can be presented as a part of this. And so for that reason, I'm going to be voting no. Thank you very much.
Senator McConkey sees this as limiting free speech. But Craig Wilcox, state senator, Republican, he also shared his reservations. In particular, he feels that this could be a level of indoctrination for students.
There's absolutely no doubt that we support workplace readiness and training programs in school, but the breadth of this bill appears to be a bit more indoctrinational if the option is chosen, and that is concerning. The week would remain focused on the objective of educating about workplace rights and opportunities rather than actually becoming, or should focus on that, rather than becoming a platform for promoting specific ideological or political viewpoints.
So again, Wilcox seeing this as possibly some kind of level of indoctrination. He does not feel that that's the right path of such legislation. Another of the 49 bills that Governor J.B. Pritzker signed deals with totaled vehicles. And you've got a state representative here brought this measure that ultimately says, hey, if an auto insurance company is going to total your vehicle, it's a pretty big deal. And that could be some huge bad news for families across the state. She thinks that it's important that they get some kind of indication as to what the breakdown is of that and so-called do the math.
In Illinois, there might be 300,000 accidents a year based on IDOT's most recent study, and about a quarter of those end up with the vehicle totaled. For that roughly 75,000 families, it's a financial catastrophe, exacerbated by the opacity in the process of understanding how that calculation was made. So this agreed bill is about showing your math. We want to add transparency that will help people understand the components of a decision to total your car. Typically, the current market value, the estimated cost of repair, and the salvage value. So
it'd be interesting to see. It's been a long time since I've had an auto insurance company say your vehicle's totaled. But if you get that message, wouldn't you like to see what the breakdown was? I mean, I've heard stories of especially new electric vehicles that if you get smashed with the back end, you've got not just the bumper, but you've got all kinds of electrical components, possible cameras and sensors, and well, it could be enough to possibly total the vehicle. What are you going to do? And can you see that breakdown from your insurance company? So that measure requires insurance companies do just that. Some of the other bills that the governor signed yesterday, House Bill 4621, effective immediately. Some provisions taking effect July 1st, creates the Office of Statewide Pretrial Services within the Administrative Office of the Illinois Courts. This deals with the pretrial services in the Pretrial Fairness Act, and we've seen a rather large increase of the number of pretrial services needed because people are having to face pretrial hearings much more rapidly, and some of the local jurisdictions may not have the manpower to do that. So House Bill 4621 brings out a statewide body to allow for that. House Bill 5594 will require schools to have a plan in place to deal with cardiac emergencies. So that begins January 1st of 2025. Also, you've got Senate Bill 3414, requires private insurance companies to cover glucose monitors. You've got the workplace readiness bill that we talked about. Advanced practice nurses will be able to provide long-acting injectables for mental health or substance use disorders, such as also the short-term bill injections for opioid overdose prevention. So that measure will take effect January 1st, 2025. You've also got this one. The minimum shotgun gauge allowed for hunting wild turkey goes from 20 gauge to 410 bore beginning January 1st, 2025. Harry Benton, Democrat in the House, talked about this measure, and in particular, State Representative Patrick Windhorst, he addressed concerns about, well, not necessarily concerns, just highlighting this doesn't just change the gauge of firearm you can use for turkey hunting. It gives the Department of Natural Resources more authority in crafting rules moving forward into the future.
This also provides for the department to make administrative rules regarding shot size, material, and density. Is that correct?
Correct. Some of the issues is the technology is always changing, so they need to be able to adapt in the field to make sure that we don't have to go back and change the statute, so we can make sure that hunters can get out there and enjoy hunting.
Some people may ask, well, didn't the U.S. Supreme Court just say that agencies can't necessarily craft law through administrative rule? So this one's fascinating. It's worth a little bit of a deeper dive and some analysis because it's not just, starting January 1st, 2025, saying that you can't hunt with a 20 gauge. It has to be 410 bore, but also giving the Illinois Department of Natural Resources the ability to restrict shot size, material, or density through administrative rule. Something else that's through administrative rule in the gun ban that was enacted in January of 2023, every October 1st, Illinois State Police, through administrative rule, they can give an entire new list of firearms that are banned and no longer to be sold or possessed. Still some questions as to, well, if somebody had them before the next October 1st, do they have to go and register those? We've heard that the registration is going to remain open, but of course that registration has been, at least compared to some of the estimates, abysmal. Some other laws taking effect January 1st, 2025. Tenants in mobile home parks under Senate Bill 2834, they can't be evicted for not paying rent, but only if the park itself is not up to date on its license or association fees. Then you have this one, House Bill 4488. It's an election omnibus bill, effective immediately, and includes various provisions. One provision codifies nursing home voters with the ability to cast ballots through vote-by-mail procedures. And opponents raised concerns that poll watchers won't be able to verify vote-by-mail procedures conducted in nursing homes where voters may be physically and mentally incapacitated. So again, 49 bills, that's just a smidgen of the measures that the governor announced were signed yesterday. Typically, I see these measures being released Friday afternoons, so we may get another bill dump sometime later on this week. We'll definitely keep you updated on those as they come through so that you're more plugged in what's going on with your state government. It is Illinois in Focus Daily with America's Talking Network. Be sure to go like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell with America's Talking Network on YouTube, and catch this program each and every weekday morning live to keep you updated on what's going on in and around the land of Lincoln. Do implore you guys, go to America's Talking Network on YouTube. Get those numbers up, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because at a date certain soon, Bishop on Air, live every morning with you, is going to go to America's Talking Network on YouTube. we're still going to do segments with Bishop on Air. I may do a Today in Gun Control segment that encapsulates a lot of things going on in the Second Amendment space. I know a lot of you people have come here for that. Listen, I've got a pretty busy summer, but I also hope to go visit some of you out there across the states, maybe go to a gun store or a shooting range. I see Todd Vandermeide in the chat with Freedom Steel. Maybe I can go and see all the things they've got going up in his neck of the woods. But again, a busy summer. It's an election year. I've got plans to go cover the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee in less than 2 weeks. I've got plans to go cover the Democratic National Convention in Chicago in mid-August. You got the state fair coming up. So soon, I'm going to have to make those plans to get and see you guys. So again, I've got some unanswered emails, speaking engagement requests and such. Go and email me, bishoponair@gmail.com, and we'll figure out how we can connect and maybe do some mini documentaries or things like that. So I greatly appreciate you guys. And I've got a special bonus segment just for Bishop on Air coming up. All right. We're going to do what we can to refresh the orders page to see if they're going to release those orders. But I've got a lot of updates on some of these other cases that we've been tracking. So stay tuned. All right. It's Bishop on Air. Supreme Court release orders about Illinois' gun ban and whether they're going to take the case on an interlocutory appeal. What does all that mean? Well, hopefully we can boil it down for you. I'm Greg Bishop with a special edition of Bishop on Air. And again, I want to remind people, if you've come to this channel to get daily updates of what's going on in Illinois, go to America's Talking Network on YouTube, like, subscribe, and hit notifications there at a date certain. That daily live program every morning is going to be only on America's Talking Network on YouTube. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to get Illinois in Focus daily. But on occasion, I'm going to do a Bishop on Air segment for you guys, specifically on the Second Amendment, because really that's where a lot of you have come to this channel for. So I want to be sure to keep you guys updated on what's going on. So here we are looking at the orders page, refreshing. It's not quite 8:30 our time. If they were to release orders, it would be at 8:30 our time. But I'm looking at the calendar here, and I don't see where they're going to be releasing any orders today. So maybe we'll get some orders, maybe not. But let's look at exactly what they could be, doing here. So the background, I'll do a quick digest. I know some of you don't want to get all the background all the time. Others who just come into this, it's good to know. But Illinois enacted a gun and magazine ban January of 2023. It prohibited the sale and possession of 170 plus semi-automatic rifles, shotguns, and handguns, and magazines over certain capacities. Lawsuits were filed in state and federal court. In the state court side, you had the case like from State Representative Dan Calkins go all the way to the Illinois Supreme Court where they ruled against him. You even had cases from, the likes of former Attorney General candidate Tom DeVore, who actually got preliminary injunctions in place for thousands of people. And those cases also went by the wayside in state court. In federal court, you had a collection of cases in the Northern District and the Southern District. The Northern District federal court ruled against the plaintiffs. In the Southern District federal courts, the judge ruled for the plaintiffs, but those were on preliminary grounds, meaning the plaintiff simply asked, we want an injunction in place while we debate the merits of this case. Southern District granted that. It lasted only 6 days. And then the appeals court reversed that, took the case, and then they heard it and ultimately sided with the state on preliminary grounds, not on the merits. So on preliminary grounds, that's where you've got people in the plaintiffs' groups asking for the U.S. Supreme Court to take those cases. So what we have now is we're still waiting on the orders to come out, and it could be any moment now. We'll sit here and refresh this page over and over again to wait for those orders. But will the U.S. Supreme Court take those cases? Not sure. But if you go and look at the court docket for the Southern District of Illinois, you'll see that even Judge Stephen McGlynn, who's been hearing that case, he says that the court notes the Supreme Court has not yet rendered a decision. And whether or not they're going to take the case could determine whether the Southern District of Illinois federal court moves forward. They've got a bench trial set for mid-September. A bench trial is set for mid-September on the merits, not on preliminary grounds, not on whether or not there should be a temporary block, but on the merits, final judgment in the Southern District. Whatever happens in the Southern District will then have to go back to the appeals court, but all that would be final action before it goes to the U.S. Supreme Court. But the U.S. Supreme Court could issue orders, possibly as early as today, to indicate whether or not they're going to take the case, or whether or not they're going to continue to sit on that. So here we are waiting, and whether or not they're going to take this case still is yet to be seen. So I'm going to go back over here, refresh. This is live to tape. Order lists. Look at this. All right, so we've got an order list now. Let's go ahead and pull this up. Just do a control search. Barnett. Caleb Barnett, Supreme Court of the United States. Dane Harrell, statement of Thomas J. Let's go, continue on. On petition for writ of certiorari to the United States State Court of Appeals, the Seventh Circuit. Let's read this. The petition of writs certiorari denied. Justice Alito would grant the petition of writs of certiorari. Statement from Justice Thomas. The state of Illinois enacted a law that makes it a felony to possess what Illinois branded assault weapons, a term defined to include AR-15s. The AR-15 is the most popular semi-automatic rifle in America, and there is, therefore, undeniably in common use today. Heller v. District of Columbia, and also Garland v. Cargill, citing Sotomayor in that. Describing semi-automatic rifles such as AR-15s as commonly available. Petitioners sought a preliminary injunction against the enforcement of the law, arguing that the law violates their Second Amendment rights. The Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit rejected the petitioner's request for a preliminary injunction, concluding that the AR-15 is not protected by the Second Amendment. Beavis versus Naperville. According to the Seventh Circuit, the rifle selected by millions of Americans for self-defense and other lawful purposes does not even fall within the scope of the arms referred to by the Second Amendment. This court is rightly wary of taking cases in an interlocutory posture, but I hope we will consider the important issue presented by these petitions after the cases reach final judgment. Thomas goes on to say, we've never squarely addressed what types of weapons are arms protected by the Second Amendment. To be sure, we explained in District of Columbia versus Heller that the Second Amendment's protection extends prima facie to all instruments that constitute bearable arms, even those that were not in existence at the time of the founding. And we noted that the Second Amendment does not protect those weapons not typically possessed by law-abiding citizens for lawful purposes, recognizing the historical tradition of prohibiting the carrying of dangerous and unusual weapons. It's not dangerous or unusual, it's dangerous and unusual. But this minimal guidance is far from comprehensive framework for evaluating restrictions of types of weapons, and it leaves open essential questions such as what makes a weapon bearable, dangerous, or unusual. The Seventh Circuit's, the Seventh Circuit's decision illustrates why this court must provide more guidance on which weapons the Second Amendment covers by contorting what little guidance our precedents provide. The Seventh Circuit concluded that the Second Amendment does not protect, quote, militaristic weapons. It then tautologically defined military weapons, militaristic weapons, as those that may be reserved for military use. The Seventh Circuit's contrived non-militaristic limitation on the arms protected by the Second Amendment seems unmoored by both text and history. This is pretty compelling, actually, because it spells out a lot of, what the Southern District of Illinois federal courts could do. So we'll obviously hear a lot more about this. No army in the world uses a service rifle that is only semi-automatic. In my view, Illinois' ban is highly suspect because it broadly prohibits common semi-automatic firearms used for lawful purposes. It is difficult to see how the Seventh Circuit could have concluded that the most widely owned semi-automatic rifles are not arms protected by the Second Amendment. These petitions arise from a preliminary injunction. The Seventh Circuit stressed that its merits analysis was merely a preliminary look at the subject. But if the Seventh Circuit ultimately allows Illinois to ban America's most common civilian rifle, we can and should review that decision once the case reaches a final judgment. The court must not permit the Seventh Circuit to regulate the Second Amendment to a second-class right. So there you go. Justice Thomas writing the, order saying that the petition for writ is denied. Justice Alito would have granted the petitions for writ. So what does that mean? It means that the Seventh Circuit case is going to move forward. So again, I'm sure the docket's going to be updated here at the Southern District Court, where you've got that bench trial set for September 16th. September 16th is now the next major move in this case. And will it go to the appeals court? How quickly will the appeals court deal with it? Then when they deal with it, they have their oral arguments, or maybe they just deal with it right when they get it. How long will it take to get to the U.S. Supreme Court? Is it going to be this time next year, where gun owners in Illinois and elsewhere across the country that live in states where they've banned semi-automatic firearms like this, are you going to have to be waiting a full year for this? Rather fascinating where we're at right now. That's not the only case that we've been watching closely. There's movement in some of these other cases as well, but we'll have to save that for another day. So headline here, as we saw it live to tape, the U.S. Supreme Court denying a request for cert in the combined cases of the gun ban in the Southern District of Illinois and elsewhere, and Justice Thomas denying that, going through and meticulously spelling out a whole bunch of reasons why that they think this is an important case, but they don't want to take it on an interlocutory basis in the middle of the case. So, again, the next step in this case is indeed the Southern District of Illinois Federal Court, where they're going to move forward with the case on the merits. It is Bishop on Air. Thank you so much for being with us each and every weekday morning. Again, I want to implore you, go and check out America's Talking Network, because that's where you're going to get all the daily news you need with Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. America's Talking Network. Just search for it on YouTube. Once you like and get that notification bell, you will be able to join us each and every weekday morning, because here at a date certain, the daily live program, Bishop on Air, will only be on America's Talking Network. We're not stopping Bishop on Air. We'll still do some segments. Like, for instance, when we're analyzing the status of gun ban legislation, or other gun laws, or maybe mini documentaries, or live chats with the likes of you in the chat room, or with Todd or others. So greatly appreciate you guys being here and being part of this. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, all the good stuff. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day. Gotta get back to work, especially after this news.